Wonderful to see you all here today as we listen and watch this music and these films from the Egyptian Revolution and the Arab Spring. My name is Joe Underhill, and on behalf of the Batalden Endowment at Augsburg College, it is my great pleasure to welcome you all here to the 32nd Symposium on Applied Ethics. A year ago, we gathered here to explore the topic, Seeking Justice Where We Live, in dialogue and community with our friends in the Cedar Riverside neighborhood, while at the same time in Cairo and throughout Egypt, tens of thousands of ordinary Egyptians, free women and men, most of them young, college-age citizens like you, took to the streets, at times putting their lives and bodies on the line to seek justice where they lived. And it was just over a year ago that a corrupt regime was toppled by an engaged citizenry. From Tunisia to Egypt to Libya to the refugee camps of Kenya, the civil strife in Somalia, the aftermath of war and occupation in Iraq, the democracy movement in Yemen, the human rights struggles in Honduras. In all these places, the struggle for justice continues. In particular now, we keep the people of Syria in our thoughts and prayers as the struggle against injustice there and the brutal response of that government takes a heavy toll. But we know that these injustices will not stand. In all these places, and here certainly in the United States as well, we are faced with the ethical challenge of standing up to the abuse of power, of emergency laws, detention camps, torture, corruption, the silencing of voices, the amassing of wealth at the expense of others. It is our life-affirming work as citizens to patiently work against these abuses, to come together and stand up against them as the people of Tahrir Square have done. This calling we embrace as we live into our identity as a democracy college, as we did this year on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and will do on February 22nd at the Sabo Symposium on Constructive Dialogue and Debate, on March 1st through the 3rd with the Nobel Peace Prize Forum and its discussion of the price of peace, with the American Commonwealth Partnership, which Augsburg is now spearheading. This May, if all goes well, inshallah, we will be bringing a group of Augsburg students to Egypt to meet with our friends there and continue the dialogue and collaboration which we are having here this week. There are a few spots left for that trip, but if you want to come, today is the day, so please do contact the Study Abroad office if you'd like to join us. This is the work of citizen students, exemplified so wonderfully by our guests, Noor, Nada, and Alaa. I ask you all to listen carefully to what they have to say this morning and consider where we have opportunities for other revolutions, both great and small. On November 30th, I received an email from our friend Ahmed Afifi, who was going to be here, but was called up from military service in December. Reflecting the significance of the events taking place there, he wrote, "A couple of days ago, Egypt experienced one of the most amazing and historical events in its 7,000-year history, with the first real parliamentary elections in the country that reflect the actual views of the people of Egypt. We stood for 5 hours in line, but you can't imagine the happiness that I personally felt when I dropped the paper down in the box and had a mark on my finger for the vote. I hope that this very first stage on the democratic way will lead us to the light and the position that our history and country deserve, inshallah." It was a long road to get to that simple act, dropping a ballot in a box, and a long path to bring Ahmed's 3 friends here today, a lot of emails, Facebook messages, and Skype sessions, and a lot of help from friends here, most notably my friend Mohammed Salam. A long road ahead as well in continuing to bring our values and ethics into being in the world, both here in Egypt and around the globe. And helping us to get to this point on that path and in making this day possible, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to the Batalden family, Ruth and Abner, who started this all, their sons Steve and Paul, all of them Augsburg graduates, who have so generously endowed this program, the purpose of which is to foster learning in applied ethics and make ethics pertinent to our lives, for example, in relation to war and peace, government, industrial life, and responsibility to nations of the global South. We hope the events of today, and I'm quite confident the events of today, will indeed foster such learning. Quick reminder, cell phones off, right? And following the presentation this morning, there will be some time for question and answer. So if you have questions as the presentation goes on, please jot them down and we'll circulate around with microphones to take those. After this event, there is a lunch in the East Commons. There's a little bit of space left, so if you want to join us for that, just let me know after this. Following that, a workshop, as your program indicates, on youth empowerment and civic engagement, and tonight, a town hall meeting and interfaith dialogue on spirituality and political activism. It is now my pleasure to invite to the podium Ahmed Shakur Ali. Shakur is a political science major here who's been working with the Batalden program. He's president of the Muslim Student Association. He'll also be on our trip in Egypt, to Egypt this May, and is currently working with the nonprofit Kujug, which is doing great work giving voice to Somali youth here in our community. Please join me in welcoming Shakur.
Thank you so much, Professor Underhill. It is now my pleasure to introduce our three beautiful guests here. I'll start off with the first handsome man right here. Alaa, Obeida is his name. He's currently studying medicine at the Qasr al-Aini School of Medicine at Cairo University and is a local youth representative for the International Education and Resource Network in Egypt. He is also one of the founders of the Your Awareness is Your Future Club and the Medical Research Society for undergraduates at the Qasr al-Aini School. He studied religious pluralism in the U.S. State Department Study of the United States Institute program at Temple University in 2010. Also, he's a founder and coordinator for the E-Youth, also known as Engaging and Empowering Egyptian Youth Project, founded by the U.S. Department Alumni Engagement Innovation Fund for 2011 through 2012. Also, we here have Yehia. That's the second person in the middle right there. Another beautiful person. And she is also one of the co-founders of E-Youth. She has a mass communications degree from Cairo University and has been very involved in a number of social, entrepreneurial, and sustainable development NGOs, including Association for Sustainable Development, the Association for Development and Enhancement of Women, and Ashoka Arab World. Nada participated in the International Student Week in Germany and in the U.S. State Department's program for social entrepreneurship at Miami University. She has been a writer for the popular Teen Stuff magazine and has been working as a creative copywriter with the advertising firm of TBWA in Egypt. And our last guest is Noor Hafez. She graduated from Cairo University with a degree in economic and participated in the U.S. State Department's program at the University of Minnesota in the summer of 2009. So she's been here once before. So. She founded a child development youth initiative in Egypt and has volunteered to teach underprivileged children in the slums of Cairo for 2 years. She also participated in the International Association for National Youth Service conference in 2010. Noor is highly involved in the U.S. alumni community as an organizing member and is the Youth Summit coordinator in the E-Youth project. Noor worked in the nonprofit sector in Egypt and is currently seeking a graduate degree in her studies. And if you guys can all please join me in giving a warm welcome to our beautiful guests.
I'm sorry, it's a sad start. On 2002, the deadliest train accident have took place in Egypt. This have stunned Egyptians everywhere, as this accident was revealing of the amounts of corruption that have spread in the Egyptian government. Egyptians have been deprived from their basic rights of safety standards in public transportation after 373 poor passengers have died in the train that has caught fire in the way from Cairo to the south.
The former regime decided to start a new democratic era, and it was funny enough to find President Mubarak winning the elections for the fifth time by 88.6%. Sad incident that happened in Egypt. More than 1,300 people died in the worst maritime disaster in the history of Egypt.
The pain of Mohammed Abdelaziz's death can still be seen on the faces of his family. In 2006, the 45-year-old bus driver set off to Saudi Arabia to help earn some extra cash for his family. On the way back home, the ferry he was on capsized. Mohammed, along with nearly 1,000 other passengers, mostly Egyptian laborers, drowned in the Red Sea. Since 2006, lawyers representing the victims have tried to bring those responsible to justice while bringing compensation for their families in Egypt. But it's been a battle. The owner of the company that operated the ferry went to Europe after the incident, but before he could be charged with a crime. An influential politician and a member of Egypt's ruling party, Mamdouh Ismail, is believed to be living in the United Kingdom. An initial trial in absentia for manslaughter in 2008 found Ismail innocent of any wrongdoing. He was found not personally liable for the capsizing.
I think you can notice, like, the old regime, the National Party. Mamdouh Ismail was one of the members of that party at that time. And you can see the corruption. Just 1,000 Egyptians were killed. And just he was found no guilt. Nothing happened to him. And in 2007, like, the National Party introduced the new amendments to the constitutions, and just like the funny games that they always played, they said like 76% of Egyptians agreed on the amendments. But let's see, like, all people, all the political opposition went into streets demonstrating, we are not agreeing with such amendments. It's unfair. Let's see what happened.
The Egyptian opposition has been shoved into corners like these by a state that has no qualms about using all the force at its disposal.
You can see, like, using the policemen just to hold the political opposition.
Finally, the echo of Egyptian activist scream has reached the international community.
In 2008, oppression has increased majorly against Egyptian activists. This was the year that marked the Muslim Brotherhood's winning 20% of the parliament seats after even corrupted elections. This year marked also the unfair military trials that leading Muslim Brotherhood figures were projected to.
On April 6, 2008, a group of youth went on major protests all over Egypt to support the strike of Mahalla workers. And since then, 6 April youth has been highly participating in the political arena of Egypt.
This man here, his name is Noor. He was one of the brave politicians in Egypt. Actually, he stood in front of Mubarak in 2005 presidential elections. And what happened to him, just he was put in jail from 2006 till 2009.
Optimism was filling the air in Egypt after Obama's speech in Cairo University. Egyptians and Muslims everywhere were happy that Obama has promised for mutual understanding and a new beginning for relations between the USA and the Muslim world, especially after the catastrophic incidents that happened and the interventions of the Bush administration in the Islamic world.
Former UN nuclear Agency, Mohammed al-Baradei, has returned to Egypt after 12 years of absence. He started to form an association, the National Association for a Change, in which different oppositions gathered and started the political reforms in Egypt.
And here, one of the two major events that happened in Egypt and they ignite the revolution. The first one was the murdering of Khalid Said. But who is Khalid Said? Khalid Said is a 28 years old Egyptian man. Just what he has done, just publishing a video on YouTube discussing what happened inside a police station in Alexandria. They were dealing in drugs and doing illegal stuff inside the police station. So the police officers sent 3 people to his street and called him down, pretending that they want to just help them in fixing their computer because he was just very smart in computers. And when he came down, they took him to the next building and started attacking him and torturing him till death. So the Egyptian youth started a Facebook page called We Are All Khalid Said, and in a week, thousands of Egyptians liked the page and start posting all what happened, just recording videos here and there and posting them on the page, and it started a political movement inside the youth society in Egypt. And in 2010 as well, the second major event, the parliamentary elections that was just controlled by thugs. The National Party and Mubarak assumed we will have a democratic elections for the first time in Egypt. But what happened, 99.5% of the parliament was from the National Party, which was wow, what happened? All Egyptians voting for the National Party? At least to have maybe 45% from the political oppositions. How come? So they used the thugs just to keep Egyptians from voting in the parliamentary elections.
On the New Year Eve of 2011, more than 36 people died in the bombing crash of Al-Qadisiyyin Church in Alexandria. Later it was found that the police forces were responsible for this incident to distract people from the political corruption in the country.
And as you can see here, this is the first part we talked about, the group of events that happened in Egypt from 2002 till the end of 2010. And now, the first real story, Noor will talk about it, please.
I thought it would be good to share with you a story I heard from one of my friends. She's a personal friend of mine. This girl has sneaked out of house pretending she had a midterm exam in order to participate in the demonstrations on January 28th. And surprisingly enough, she found her mother right by her side in the protest. Yes, she did. And this incident was very common. I actually saw 3 families on the same incident repeating. And the mothers were even veiled and covering their faces and everything. But this was marking that the Egyptian women have finally decided that their voice had to be heard, and that they have been kept in silence for decades, like all other Egyptian citizens, actually males and females, who haven't been participating in the political life at all. But this was the time for ousting the regime by the Egyptian hands.
And now, it's the Friday of Rage. It's January 28th, where all communication, all internet connection, cell phone connections, all will cut off by the old regime. Why? Just to prevent youth from communicating together, just to stop us. But what happened? All Egyptians rushed into streets. Some people went just to see what's happening, and the others were going down to protest and to see the empathy and sympathy to the revolution and people who have died. As you can see here, just one of the brave Egyptians standing in front of police vehicle that was pushing water against the protesters, and he was just stopping the water by his own body.
Well, actually, I've heard the funniest comment over the accident over the 28th of January that Alaa was saying. an Egyptian actor said that this was the stupidest action that the government has taken, as if they had kept Facebook, at least some youth would have been distracted with playing games instead of going down to the streets. So this was what happened.
This is a story I would like to share about someone who I consider a role model. Jawad Nabulsi, a brave young man who lost his eyes in the Friday of Rage. And instead of losing himself in grief, he established Nibni Foundation for Development and decided that developing Egypt is what he's working for.
This is a picture of millions of Egyptian men everywhere in every district that have organized in committees aiming to protect the people's properties 24/7 after the police forces have mysteriously withdrawn, and also after a series of organized present breaks around the Egypt's governors aiming to terrorize the Egyptian people. So our Egyptian men were down in the streets taking shisha and tea all the time and playing games and protecting the homes as well.
And now, it is a Friday of Tpawshal, the happiest event ever happened in the last maybe 50 years in the history of Egypt. At 6 p.m., Omar Suleiman talked in the national TV and said that Mubarak stepped down and just handed over all his authorities to the military forces. It was such a moment of enjoyment. All Egyptians went into streets, in Tahrir Square and in all other squares all over Egypt, celebrating.
Next morning, people decided to go and clear Tahrir Square. They wanted to clean out everything related to the former regime and start a new beginning.
And in March, the constitution amendments and the real voting in the history of Egypt, the real democratic process started here since March 19th. 77% approved the constitution amendments, while like 33%, 22% just refused it.
On April 8th, thousands of Egyptians have protested in Tahrir Square, demanding the rule of law being applied over the ex-regime leading corruption figures like Mubarak, his son, and many other figures. It was strange that the SCAF haven't yet cleaned the political arena from such corruption figures till now. And a week later, the mounting public pressure has won after the arrests of Mubarak and other corruption figures as well.
And now, Mubarak in cage, behind, he was very sad, and all the Egyptians were very happy. Finally, we need justice, only justice.
This is a spoof account done by some Egyptian young men, Tantawi, where they spread jokes about his sayings and the stuff that he do. This is actually like a phenomenon now in Egypt that for many public figures, you found like spoof accounts for them. So people spread jokes and stuff, you know. On that day, more than 25 Coptic died in clashes between Coptic groups in the streets, going and asking for the rights, and the army.
Mohammed Mahmoud Street. This is the street where the the Ministry of Interior Affairs is located, just beside the Tahrir Square. The street have witnessed the clashes between the security forces using tear gases and rubber forces and rubber bullets, sadly imported from the USA, against protesters who were demanding political reforms, and they were claiming protecting the ministry.
And now, Assam Sharaf, the prime minister at that time, just left after Muhammad Mahmoud accidents and what happened there. He left after 36 people died and 1,250 Egyptians injured. And after that, Al-Ganzouli followed him. Actually, Egyptians have high expectations that Al-Ganzouli will make a real reform in Egypt, but what happened, like, it was very disappointing to us.
Now, the first true parliamentary elections in Egypt, women lined up from everywhere all over Egypt to stand up for their voices and support whoever they believe in.
On December 17th, it's a remarkable day that most Egyptians will remember it for a long time. What happened in Tahrir Square, some protesters and a woman with them just showed kicked by a military personnel. Actually, we believe that he's not belonging to our military. Like he was just a bad guy doing this.
Army thought that using violence will keep people away from the streets, which is not true, actually.
Even they claimed it was Photoshop.
This is one of the most innovative ways I've ever seen of delivering a message. People lined up in their neighborhoods holding like papers, written on it messages about the revolutions, the martyrs, their aims for Egypt, for hours, just to deliver the message and decrease the gap between those who are calling for stability and protesters in Tahrir Square.
And they are all silent, just holding pieces of paper, as you will see here.
These papers say that without the revolution, now Gamal Mubarak would be our president.
This was in Alexandria when rain was covering the streets, and even though old women and children were filling the streets demonstrating as well.
These papers say, army is our arm. This one say, politics is not for army.
Scream out loud. A young kid. Okay, this was last January, which marked the first parliamentary session of the post-revolution parliament, which Islamist has won more than 2/3 of the parliament seats in.
Here we see Tantawi claiming that the military emergency state will be lifted, except in the state of thugs. And thugs can be like me, Alaa, Noor, anyone can be accused of being thug.
The 25th of January 2012, the day Egyptians have renewed their dedication and their commitment to the revolution's goals, as well as celebrating the revolution anniversary in Tahrir Square. Actually, this was the crowdest day ever, as not only the square, but also the streets leading to the square were completely full. People were screaming on Twitter all the day that they couldn't reach the square as well.
And here, like on January 25th, at the anniversary of the revolution, some people believed like there was some discrimination between Muslims and the Christians in Egypt. But what happened inside Tahrir Square at that time was very inspiring to all of us. In Tahrir, we have a mosque, which is called Omar Makram, and we have a church near the mosque, which is called Kanisat al-Dubara. And actually, you know, like millions of Egyptians are gathering in the street, in Tahrir Square. So people at the time of prayer, they want to wash to pray, and what has like all the church leaders at that time, they opened the doors of the church and they invited Egyptians to go inside the church and to wash, and so that they can pray outside. And even for women, they are allowed inside the church to pray their Islamic prayers. Also in January 2005, at the beginning of the revolution, Muslims were just praying and they are surrounded by Christians, protecting them while they are praying. And on the other side, like Christians were just holding their Sunday prayer and Muslims were just surrounding them to protect them. So like all ordinary Egyptians, we have no discrimination between Christians and Muslims. Maybe some people are very conservative, but the majority of the Egyptian population, just we feel like we are all the same. At least we share the humanity.
Well, actually, this explains why Egyptians are very attached to Tahrir Square because of the spirit they found there. It was the place where Egyptians have removed all the bad traits, all the discrimination, and all the previous fights that were between the poor and the rich, the Copts and the Muslims, and the place which embodied the peace and the unity of the Egyptian people.
Both El Dubara Church and Omar Makram Mosque were used as field hospitals during the clashes between the army and the protesters.
This is the end of the second part of our presentation, and now the future as we see.
Beginning of a new chapter in the history of a great country.
Reclaiming the Egyptian desert. Better transportation for university. Sweden Science City.
I believe only by empowering people that we'll be able to have economic and social development and
This is Muhammad al-Baladi, by the
the
way.
rest of the world.
Recycling. For better education. This is the word Egypt in Egyptian, in Arabic. Free Egyptians. Actually, these are basic rights that citizens in developed countries are enjoying every day, but we in Egypt are still struggling to get it, and we believe and we're very optimistic that we're finally getting there someday.
By the way, this was the longest Egyptian flag ever. It was used in the celebration of the anniversary of the revolution, and it was like very, 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 very long.
After this speech, who exactly we are? We're not here only to represent thousands of youth activists around Egypt. We're also here to represent our group, which is Youth Project Team. This team has won the State Department Fund for innovating and designing Egypt's pioneering youth leadership initiative, aiming to empower Egyptian leaders in the political and social fields.
And now, a youth project. Youth stands for engaging and empowering Egyptian youth. First, it started by announcing a grant from the Department of State for all alumni around the world. They can apply. And me and Noor, Nada, and the other team of youth were part of the alumni community. So they thought we think about something to change the Egyptian life. We need to focus on the Egyptian youth. They are the future. They are the people who can lead the change, make the change, and believe in change. So we applied for the project, and after that, all our things like we need development, we need initiation, teamwork, youth, Egyptian empowering, democracy, leadership, awareness, all this good stuff. And so we start writing the proposal and sending it. And we will just one project out of 700 projects from all over the world. So it was a marvelous competition. Like, can we get it? Actually, personally, I believed we will get it. Like, we are doing great. And as you can notice here, we'll announce it like the first in the region, in the Middle East region. And finally, we will one of two projects in Egypt and 1 out of 5 in the Middle East and 1 out of 38 projects all over the world. The grant was like $35,000, by the way. We won, but now it's time to work. We started all the preparation. We started preparing for our survey, for the youth summit, and for the orientation day, for our conference, and for everything. We prepared all the stuff, and we started preparing like some movies about the project and some promos and so. Finally, we have the plans done, but we are just waiting for the approval from the Egyptian ministry to start applying the project. Because we are receiving funds from outside the country, so we have to get like a permission from the Ministry of Solidarity to be able to implement the project in Egypt. We received like many collaboration proposals from Solia and other organizations inside and outside Egypt. Now we are just waiting for the proposal. We have done all the preparation, and we have held many meetings and like full day meetings and so. This is our team while implementing the main nucleus of our project while working. By the way, this is the youngest member in the team. And this is e-youth in brief. I don't like to just talk much about it. I think in the afternoon session we can discuss it more together, inshallah.
We write our future and we will keep seeing hope in it.
This is our last status.
أنا بحلم إن المدارس يبقى فيها ألعاب. أنا بحلم إن مصر تبقى أحلى. بحلم بحلم إن يبقى فيه ملاهي كتيرة. بحلم في شغل كتير. أنا بحلم إن مش عارفة. I dream no more people die in the streets.
This was in Cairo. And this is a library, a new one.
أنا بحب مصر وعايزة كل الأطفال يعرفوا يقروا. أنا كمان.
It took a lot of time to picture this. Me too.
Actually, I'd like to thank Muhammad Omar, the guy who just captured the video and make all the editing process, and he's also the one who created our logo. And for the other video about the future of Egypt, I'd like to thank Shru Muhammad, which did a great work just putting all things together and just make the translations and everything.
Thank you, everybody, for your time. Thank you for attending. Thank you.
Yeah, so if anyone has questions for our presenters, just raise your hand. We'll bring a microphone to you. So anybody have any questions, observations? Yeah, Shakur, do you want to?
Have any of you personally found a stronger belief in your faiths through all of this happening?
Actually, this happened, and especially on the day Mubarak was down on the 11th of February, Egyptians were very, they were expecting the West after his speech yesterday, which meant he didn't understand anything. And they were praying all day and they were asking God for help. And then the good news came while they were praying for Maghrib prayers, and the celebrations filled the place. Everyone was saying Egyptians have finally ousted the regime. And then in a while, everyone, the public, all of them said, only God have ousted the regime. Egyptians were feeling grateful and thankful for all the help we got from Allah through this revolution. And Egyptians have been said that they're negative and that they won't ever do a revolution. And this was simply a miracle plus hard work from Egyptians.
And by the way, many Egyptians, when the Tabausha announced, like, all people, like, make the sujood, I'm not sure you have, but you put your front of the head on the ground, just thanking Allah for helping us.
First of all, thank you for presenting. It was a great presentation. Can you describe the feelings, personal or just in the street, the feelings that happened after 2/3 of the parliament was elected as the Islamist party compared to a year ago or 2 years ago? I can't remember precisely. Everything being under the National Democratic Party. How did that change sort of feel to you personally, and what was the energy in the street like?
Actually, we expected that the Islamists are going to take like a high percentage in the parliament, but not that high. We're hoping that they're not going to be as corrupted as the National Democratic Party, but we're still anticipating what they are going to do, because at the large mass, they only express their ideology, and many other ideologies are not represented at them.
Also, I'd like to add, like ordinary Egyptian people thought that the old regime was just from the liberal side of view. Most of them believed like maybe the Islamists will be honest enough, will be like brave enough, and they will just face a lot of opposition all through the past years. Just they believed we can give them a try and see if they are not going to practice democracy in the right way. So in the next election, we can just not voting for them and vote for other parties.
My question is, like for the Egyptian people, what is their view of Islam in the political structure of Egypt? What are their views about Islam in the political structure of Egypt?
Well, actually, it differs between governors, between standards of Egyptians. Higher standards are more pro-liberal political powers, and a bit medium and lower standards are more into Islamists, because Islamists have spent the past 80 years being really active in the Egyptian streets. They've even done better crisis relief after earthquakes in Egypt or anything. So people trust them, and they know they're not corrupted. That is at least very, very well known. But even those who do not agree for the Islamist rule for Egypt are now, for example, I live in a prestigious district in Cairo. I hear people everywhere, cops and other people who haven't voted for Islamists, saying that, okay, they're now elected, and we know this have been done fairly enough, so we will give them their time, and we'll trust them enough in order to see what results they will bring to Egypt. And the sessions that have preceded our being here have been, well, positive enough that people believe they're interacting with what's happening on the ground and not anymore in the fairy world they were living at.
And I'd like to add that if the Islamists are going to apply Islam practices in the right way, as it was practiced like maybe 1400 years ago, and in the same democratic way, I do believe it will be the best for Egypt and for the Arab region as a whole. But if they are going like to apply some models, maybe the Iran model or other model in Afghanistan or anything, so it will go bad. So hopefully they will do the right thing and they'll go for real democracy.
All right. Can you explain some of the continuing challenges that you're facing right now in exposing and removing corruption in the government?
Actually, we still haven't been completely freed yet, as the military rulers are still controlling this country. We have lots of issues with freedom of speech. Well, actually, and there is also lots of claims of being funded from international powers, of being agents to international powers as well. So this is a concern for most Egyptian activists. Also, challenges is the same routine, the same slow government approvals, because the system hasn't renovated itself yet. I guess also the military courts that Egyptian youth. I have a friend of mine who has been demonstrated peacefully, who's been taken in these courts as well. So these are challenges that we're still facing, and we hope the parliament would be a legitimate voice for people refusing these things.
I think you know that, inshallah, next June we will have the presidential elections. What I hope for, like, after the elected new president, the new government should be like maybe half of it from youth. I do believe that youth can bring the change. But if we still depend on the old mentalities and old people, they have been corrupted for a long period of time, I do believe they can't bring change anymore.
I want to thank you for coming, and also thank you for the role of young people in Egypt for helping energize the world in the 21st century. You're inspiration for those who believe in a deeper democracy here as well as elsewhere. I was very interested in the presentation, in the video of the many references to freedom. And it reminds me of when I was in the 1960s, I was in the American Civil Rights Movement that was known as a freedom movement, actually, not so much rights, but freedom. So I wonder, it means more, it seems, than simply freedom from oppression. It means a positive vision of freedom, and I wonder if you could talk about that, understanding that this also may be a conversation this afternoon as well.
I agree with you. We need like freedom from all the corrupted system and freedom from all the oppression happened. I don't believe it. We need just like more personal freedom. Like it's more like political freedom, social freedom. If I'm going to apply a project in Egypt, a developmental project, I don't have just to fill in like maybe 50 pages, and after that send them over and wait for like 5 months just waiting for a reply that's saying we have more questions for you. We need freedom from all this like old regime and all this stuff.
Again, thank you for sharing your story and the story of the revolution. One thing I'm just really curious about is what was your most effective strategy and tools you used to spread the word, especially with the youth? I can tell Facebook was really influential, but what else? What were some of your strategies?
In addition to Facebook and Twitter, of course, people tend to now organize like events and on-ground activation, because with only posting stuff on Facebook, we won't be effective enough. We won't like deliver our message right. So people tend to do like meetings, arrange them on Facebook and go and meet in the streets and do activities and mingle with others, spread their messages like the revolution change, stuff like that, yeah.
Also, there were some old political activists, not really old, but I mean experienced political activists who have been planning for this revolution before it happened, who haven't been one of them, who've been active participants in the revolution itself. But they were, in talks on the TV, they said they were expecting thousands, like every time thousands of protesters only demonstrating. But what was surprising is the millions and the hundreds of thousands all over Egypt. And I guess this was because of what happened in Tunisia. People have been exposed to a success story. Arabs were actually eligible to make their voice heard and to determine a better future for their citizens. So this was the most pushing power and the inspirational power for them. And also the many political talks, especially on the night preceding the revolution, that were saying Egypt is not Tunisia. Egypt is not Tunisia. They were trying to make people believe that we're not Tunisia. Please don't try to imitate anything. But I guess people wanted to challenge themselves, so millions were in the streets.
And I'd like to add that, using Facebook and Twitter, it was a very good thing to happen because it reached like the majority of Egyptian youth. But at the same time, it was like a drawback because like the ordinary people in the street, most of them don't have computer, don't have any Facebook accounts. So like maybe the bad guys used just to go into streets and tell people in the streets the revolution is bad. And youth just sitting on their laptops and Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts and just sending stuff to each other. That's why they started the revolution chains and just standing in the streets and holding pieces of paper just to reach the ordinary population in Egypt.
Thank you so much for being here today. It's a great honor for Augsburg College to have you. My question relates to, you mentioned that, that you'd been working a long time on this revolution, and I understand that a lot of nonviolent strategies were in place, and the power of nonviolence was incredible to watch and to see. Could you talk a little bit about that work and how you brought about this revolution?
Many activists have said they have benefited from books they've read about the nonviolent strategies, also trainings they've got either in Egypt or outside. Also, Egyptian people are nonviolent by nature, and the system was trying to convince people that they are violent and that they are not eligible for democracy. But this was totally false and proved in the revolution, in which Egyptians were all, for the first time, demonstrating. We didn't have any political history before, and people were saying "Silmiya, Silmiya," which means peaceful. Peaceful. Please don't throw a rock. Please don't fire anything. And even in the late clashes between the security forces and the protesters, which happened to have some rocks and fires between the two sides, these were very peaceful in regard to what we were getting, because they were only trying to protect themselves. The tear gases, when they were thrown over them, they were just getting them back with no masks, with no any equipment. So I guess Egypt, till this moment, with people who are dying in clashes, are still being peaceful, because even the fire that has happened before was said to be from the tear gas that the police have fired, not the protesters themselves. So I guess learning from international experiences, as well as the nature of the Egyptian people, have helped keep this revolution as peaceful as possible.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. I have two questions, and the first question is, in what ways do you guys wish to keep this revolution going, and that what started on the 25th of January is not a lost cause, say 10 years down the road? And my other question is, right now Yemen and other parts of the world like Syria have not really accomplished the first stage of getting rid of the dictator. Are you guys in touch with the youth there to kind of give them hints of how the Egyptians were able to succeed? Or if so, can you touch a little bit on that?
The first question, future of the revolution. Now people are in the streets to keep the pressure on the SCAF, Supreme Council of Armed Forces, so that they would leave by the end of June, and so that we would be able to have a president. Then we will start to establish like development projects all over Egypt in economy, education, politics, everything like that, yeah.
Also about what we're seeing for the future of the revolution, I guess, sadly, we've been busy with trying to advocate for the basic revolution goals that have been already accomplished in Tunisia, for example, that we couldn't have time to ask for the end result that we're aiming from the revolution, which is a revolution in the ethics between the people in Egypt, a revolution in attitudes, a revolution in the work, because people need to work harder. If we want to develop, we don't only need to have a better government, but Egyptians need to learn work ethics and to learn to be more effective. So I guess just after the SCAF leave, we hope that after the SCAF leave and elected president comes and hold the country, we would be, youth activists would be more busy for advocating for the end results of the revolution, which is promoting for better education, promoting for more youth involvement in order to compensate for the very low percentage of youth and women representation in this parliament. We want to work hard for this not to be repeated in the other round.
Regarding the situation in Syria, it's quite different. Because if you can notice what happened in Libya, Egypt, Syria, and Tunisia, you can figure out, like, the main power is the military power. When the military forces in Libya supported Al-Qaddafi, actually they start firing people and killing the civilians. But in Egypt, the military forces said, no, we are not going to attack innocent Egyptians. They have the rights to go into streets and go in protests. The situation in Syria is quite complicated because it has some religious background. Because like people who are protesting are mainly from Sunnah, and people in governments like from Shia, and some hate between Sunnah and Shia there. And the military forces in Syria are supporting the regime. And we do believe like Iran and maybe China and Russia are supporting Syria as well. So it's quite different. But if you look at Egypt, like the Egyptian have, all the people in the streets have no religious background. We are all going for social justice, for like what you have heard from Rami Assam saying bread, freedom, and social justice, like basic rights. So it's quite different in Syria. Of course, there are some people in touch together, but like their tanks surround the city and start firing from everywhere. That haven't done in Egypt.
To add something, I might disagree with Alaa, because I personally believe that the revolution in Syria is not religion-based in any way. And I believe these are the lies that the system is trying to propagate for. But we'll only know the truth when this revolution wins, inshallah. What I think Egyptians are paying for the Syrian revolution in a way that you can see in Tahrir Square, whenever there are millions of masses there, you will find the Syrian flags covering the people, as well as Palestine's flags, as well as Yemen's and Libya's. People are supporting the Arab Spring with the way they can do, and we hope we can compensate for the foreign ministry not declaring its rejection for what's happening in Syria through our public demonstrations. I believe 2 days ago when we were here in the USA, many Egyptians and Syrians living in Egypt have been demonstrating in front of the Syrian embassy, asking for I don't know, for asking the Syrian ambassador to leave the country. So this is what we're doing now, and we're hoping for the parliament as well, and there are many pressure groups asking the parliament to declare its rejection for what's happening in Egypt. And I believe this procrastination is due to the Arab League having lots of dictatorship that are fearing for similar movements happening in their countries. So they're not very supportive of saving Syrian people.
I think we will wrap things up. Thank you again for your wonderful presentation.